Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to Sofa Reviews. Today we're watching Dracula 2, Ascension.
As you may remember, Dracula died quite soundly in the last movie, so I'm curious to see how they get around that this time.
Instead, we just get to watch a woman being chased by a slow-moving man before collapsing at the sound of bells.
It turns out she's a vampire and the man is a priest.
I beg you.
I'm only here to help you.
And before he knows it, he's trapped by twins without his scythe. Well, we've all been there.
Through the power of being a badass, he wraps a wire around their necks and beheads them, only getting slightly bitten.
And so, having defeated the vampires, he sets fire to their bodies with holy water. But he keeps the heads.
We next see him at dawn fighting the vampirism.
Later on, we're introduced to Wheels, Whiny, Jugs and Black Guy, and their utterly tedious lives.
But then we get a flashback of the first movie, reminding us why there couldn't be a sequel.
Turns out Mary did such a good job guarding Dracula's remains, they're taken to the morgue.
Someone hung him on a cross and burned him alive.
Elizabeth and Luke decide to perform an autopsy. Luke then suggests that it might be a vampire.
While testing this theory, we find out Dracula's teeth are on a spring, and so Whiny gets bitten.
And now, the most bombastic car parking music ever.
Right, so Whiny tells Wheels about it while Luke gets a phone call from a guy offering to buy the body as the priest just happens to know where Dracula is and shows up.
Having been offered money, he has no problem swapping the body.
No, Elizabeth. Not doing this is insane. $30 million.
The priest wastes his holy water on just a normal burnt body and goes chasing after them, only to get caught in slow motion.
They then travel to an old house and decide to experiment on the body.
Of course, if you've got a burnt body that you think is a vampire, the best thing to do is submerge it in a bathtub full of blood, at night, in an old abandoned house.
Bizarrely enough, this turns out badly and the blonde chick throws herself out a window.
Well, she was rather top-heavy.
The students can't deal with this, but luckily an English guy turns up with a torch, sun gun.
Staking it won't be necessary.
After giving Dracula a wash, they head outside to see that Jugs is dead.
Elizabeth thinks they should tell the police, but the others decide it's better to just bury her.
Having checked that her hand is still bleeding, we cut to Black Guy, who is really upset about what's happened.
I just got through planting my best friend in somebody's backyard. Excuse me if I don't give a shit.
Totally in character.
Think about the money. Here's the MOB. What's MOB? Money over bitches.
So the English guy, Eric, decides to take them to a much more secure location where they can continue experimenting.
Back at the old house, the police show up, because apparently a girl throwing herself out of a window sounds like...
Father heard there's some kind of demonic ritual going on out here.
The policeman sees the priest and decides to arrest him.
Jugs comes back as a vampire, attacking them, and instantly knows that the priest is the threat.
Wait, she's in her underwear. Did they strip her before they buried her?
In a burst of originality, she gets thrown out of the same window, and the priest leaves the policeman behind with the burning remains of his partner.
Back with our hero, moron, student characters, they decide they need to draw more blood from Dracula to experiment on.
Who's your daddy?
Mr. Iscariot, I guess?
Take from me. But first, we must stop the sun.
They lower the light so they can draw more blood from Dracula because they're taking orders from the prisoner?
Right, she should keep the glasses on and he should stay by the dial, the utter dickhead.
They discover that Dracula's blood can repair damaged tissue.
They're taking over.
If it's replacing the cells it's killed, when do you stop being you?
It won't change who you are, just make you better.
Until Luke shows up with some holy water, which causes the tissue to sizzle and burn.
Because Luke is the only one being sensible about the ancient being of pure evil, this upsets Kenny.
We all know what it is.
No, what are you really saying, huh? Are you with us or are you against us? I gotta know who my allies are.
He's trying to save your lives from your own stupidity. So against you.
After this, Luke decides he needs to decorate Dracula.
What's with the seeds?
Well, they say vampires are compulsive counters.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We then see the priest indulging in some perfectly normal self-harm while having a flashback.
His face may change with each regeneration, but the evil within him is constant.
Wait, his face changes? Every time we've seen him previously, he's been Gerard Butler, and he's only died once before in the Victorian times, and again now. So he's regenerated, what, twice? Into the same guy?
Kenny proves how intelligent he is by injecting himself with Dracula's blood, or liquid evil as it should be known.
Having turned completely evil for no reason, he attacks Lowell and runs away.
So Eric goes after Kenny, while Wheels decides he's had enough of being in this film.
Kenny kills a woman while Luke and Elizabeth try to save Lowell.
We also see how brave Eric is when confronted with a shoe.
Kenny attacks Eric only for the priest to finally show up and add another head to his collection.
Eric then shows he's made of sterner stuff and won't succumb to threats.
Play games, you die.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The priest goes after the woman, who's now also a vampire and has killed her cat for some reason.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth decides to give Dracula some of her blood, so she can then take blood from Dracula to revive Wheels. So, recycling?
This leads to a joint hallucination between Elizabeth and Dracula in which they have perfectly justified sex, while Luke just watches on.
Until, of course, he activates the UV light cock block.
So Elizabeth gives Lowell the blood while Luke and Eric argue about what to do with the priest.
The blood allows Wheels to recover, and now that he's better, he turns into a complete douchebag.
Douchebag reveals that he's been working with Eric all along.
No, you were in love. I was in need.
After listening to his backstory, we get to see that Eric really struggles with swearing.
This childish act allows Elizabeth to knock the vial of blood out of his hand.
That was a real jilted bitch thing to do.
And then she throws holy water into his face, sending him running off to the priest.
Picked a bad day to become a vampire.
Eric goes to retrieve the blood while Dracula decides he's finally going to free himself. The lights inexplicably exploding around him.
Dracula bites Eric's face off, and Luke goes to shoot him, somehow missing a guy who's tied up and unable to move.
Dracula breaks free and makes a mockery of Luke's defences.
Yes, untie the knots! The seat!
47,812.
The priest shows up and throws his whip at Dracula, clearly amazed that someone thought to catch it.
And then Dracula steals his coat. What a dick!
Well, it is a nice coat.
Luke shoots Dracula in the back to save the priest, and Dracula runs off.
Suddenly Eric stands up, his face a hideous mess of teeth, and tries to attack Luke.
Luke, though, dodges and rams a bottle of holy water down his throat, meaning Eric is lucky enough to have 2 painful deaths.
I could use somebody like you.
Well, he is the only other competent person in the film.
Luke tries to take Elizabeth outside to cure the vampiric infection, but for some reason she doesn't want to stay in the light.
We can do this, okay? We're gonna do this.
Agony will be unimaginable.
So the priest and Dracula battle it out, pretty much playing out the ending scene from the first film with the idea of Dracula trying to obtain God's forgiveness.
The priest has the chance to decapitate Dracula, but it's distracted by flashbacks.
Luckily, he gets shot in the back with a harpoon, which snaps him out of it.
Turns out it was Elizabeth who shot him in the back. Her and Dracula then leave him behind, setting up the stage for the sequel. And so the movie ends. And in conclusion, this movie has a lot going for it. It's actually quite a lot of fun. The priest, for example, is a really good hero. He's entertaining and a badass, played by Jason Scott Lee, who is a much better replacement for Johnny Lee Miller. Dracula's also well done. He's played by a much better actor than Gerard Butler and is more intimidating and has a much more gruesome appearance. Even Luke, just a random side character, even though he started all this mess, he's a very competent hero. He looks for solutions, he recognises evil, and it's pretty good that he knows vampire lore from the off rather than having it as a mystery to everyone. And finally, Eric. While he's a bit of a stereotypical British person, he is highly entertaining to see his hammy, scared acting.
Right, well first off, surely students and lecturers can't date. I don't even see how that gets set up. Kenny's character just flits about in between different states just to suit the script. Douchebag then explains that there was no trace of vampires, but in the first film there were 3 dead women just left lying about, as there wasn't a priest to burn their bodies as well. And speaking of the sequel, despite their attempts to explain it, there's no mention of Mary. There's really no reason these films should exist. Also, Kenny injects himself with the blood and turns into a vampire. Van Helsing had been doing this for 100 years and was perfectly fine. Finally, Eric gets his face bitten off, but instead of recovering, his face turns into a mouth. Yet no one gets bitten on the neck and develops a mouth there either.
Tell them I'm coming.
Yes. Yes, I will.